Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Memento Futurum podcast. This is Vanessa, your host, and today we are speaking with Ani Williams. A little bit about Ani before we begin. Ani Williams is a harpist, singer, composer, author, and sound therapist. She has performed worldwide since the 1980s and has recorded more than 24 albums of original music based on ancient and sacred traditions. She has done seminal research in sound healing and the relationship between musical tones, the human voice, and healing. In 1992, she founded Songaia Sound, incorporating the study of Hermetic sound science and voice diagnostics. Currently, she is teaching an online training for international students in this groundbreaking Bio-Acoustics therapy. And for more than 3 decades, Ani has presented concerts, seminars, and trainings across Eastern and Western Europe, Britain, Mexico, and the United States. Her new book, Guardians of the Dragon Path, is a stunning quest of discovery in ancient sound and healing traditions, temples, and Magdalena sites across the Pyrenees and the Camino de Compostela. Ani is currently working on a series of videos from footage of an historic ceremony of indigenous elders at Machu Picchu in 1987. Thank you so much for being here, Ani. I'm really excited.
Thank you. That was a mouthful.
Well, you have an amazing background, and I want people to know about it. So, yeah, I was really, really inspired to interview you and to bring you on because there's so many pieces, but I've been following your work for a very long time, and your voice and your work with the harp has deeply inspired me. And kind of like the first thing that I wanted to just say here is that the video that you have with the wind harp at it's Glastonbury, no, at Stonehenge.
Yes, yes.
That was so inspiring, and it really took me so deeply because so my background being in classical music and then bridging that in my 20s with sound healing, and then seeing this video of you. I have a harp. I have a sharpsicle harp from the harpsicle company.
Right, right.
And there was a time in 2019 when I was outside with the harp, and I haven't been very proficient with it, like playing it in a classical way. It's been like really just super intuitive. And the wind started to do this thing with the harp and sounding and the harmonics, and I was so blown away that sound was coming through the harp. And at that point, I hadn't seen your video yet. And
yeah.
it just took me another place. And then seeing your video, like really, and what you were saying about it really connected me about the wind harp, and the ancient history there.
For your listeners, can I just interject something?
Please, yeah.
The wind harp is called Aeolian harp, and it was even talked about by King Solomon. The great king of Israel. And he talked about it being like the voice of the gods.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it does sound like that because it has such an etheric, enchanting effect. And as I said in the video, it had this very powerful effect on the guard there that was standing. I thought I was in trouble. He stopped me. He said, "What is that sound?" Because it was the same sound that he hears at night coming off the stones.
Whoa.
And that was just extraordinary to get a firsthand kind of witness to someone who actually hears the stones singing. And then that interchange of being there, doing our mantras and having the wind harp circumambulating around the stones. Everyone at the end saw the stones glowing with
Wow.
blue light. It was just quite a powerful experience. So yeah, I can send you that link, or you already have it, for anyone that wants to see that.
I'm definitely going to put that link to your YouTube in the show notes because I want people to really see you in action there. It was really, really, it struck me really deeply. So, and it connected a lot of things. So yeah, I was really inspired, between that and listening to your music and hearing, about your journey with, going to sacred sites and creating music, which I would love to just hear about. How did I guess how did the inspiration come, or like what was the calling to start doing this kind of work? I would just love to ask that.
Yeah, that's good because I didn't intend to do any of it.
Hmm.
I got, you know, asked to bring my harp to ancient sites starting in 1987. And because I had a small harp as well, people saw that I played the harp and they realized what I was doing. And they said, "Oh, come on my journey. I'm leading a group of indigenous elders in Machu Picchu." And
Hmm.
then another one, "Oh, we're going to England and Scotland. Bring your harp. You can come for free, 2-week trip." Then it
Wow.
happened in Egypt, and then it happened, all over the world. And so I started going to these places and, like you, listening at the sites
Hmm.
and starting to hear music at the sites, starting to hear specific tunings and tones. So
Wow.
it all began very intuitively, and then the science came in later. But really, it was a more of a direct experience with indigenous people, with ancient cultures, and connecting with the sites.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
so pre 1987, you were a musician, like playing
Yeah.
the harp in different like musical settings. Is that what you were doing?
Well, I was doing concerts and recordings. I I think I had did my first recording in 1981.
Okay, wow.
And yeah, and I wasn't really trained. I played by ear. I mean, I had a few lessons from a classical harpist, but that was it. I don't read music.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
play what I hear, and it's all in my head, right? So
Oh my gosh, Ani, I'm blown away. Okay. I'm
yeah,
I'm
for
Go ahead, go ahead.
for a classically trained musician, I mean, I play in a million different, not a million, I'm exaggerating, but a lot of different tunings.
Hmm.
And these are all tunings that I just found by, testing the harp and, making certain sharps and flats.
Hmm.
And also I got some of the tunings, especially the one that you've listened to a lot. You said Homage to Hathor.
Yes. Hmm.
And there's another album as well, Song of Isis, that was recorded live in the pyramids in Egypt and the temples.
Wow.
But anyway, the
Hmm.
the Homage to Hathor, the musical scale was based on the geometry and the natural temple acoustics of Abydos.
Oh my gosh. How did you arrive to that? Or were you reading, were you studying, or is this like
Yeah,
intuition?
well, it was both. I had a colleague who was approaching the research from a mathematical kind of measurements basis.
Hmm.
And he was measuring the chambers and finding the proposed dominant frequencies. And then I would go in and get the observed dominant frequencies by just singing notes in the different chambers or plucking a single harp string in each chamber and
Hmm.
just seeing which tones were stronger. You could hear
Wow.
the expanded harmonics in the tones that were more resonant in each chamber. So I finished my work, he finished his work, and they matched. And
Wow.
that was a real kind of zero point for me in my work with sound and healing, because I realized that what I was getting intuitively could actually be measured and proven
Hmm.
in a more logical way. And that was magical because,
Hmm.
putting science or putting, really grounded uh, foundational structure
Hmm.
to what we're doing intuitively or in your dream work, for instance.
Hmm.
When you can put the two together, it is so empowering and it also reaches more people. So I realized that I wanted to, at that point, incorporate more science
Hmm.
and more study and more history to what I was doing and what I was getting.
So I'm just so blown away by that. And I do think like this marriage between mystery and measure, or maybe measure and magic, however you want to feel it, but, or
Yeah,
say it. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that that is, that to me feels like the alchemical teachings. And it's my understanding that your voice diagnostics program includes Hermetic philosophy. I want to hear about your training.
Yeah, so I'm doing an online training that is come in when you're ready kind of thing. I mean,
Hmm.
I put together 37 modules, and
Wow.
I don't think I will ever do that much again. It took me a year to put it together.
Hmm.
So it's videos created especially for the training, and videos extracted from a live training.
Hmm.
Plus, there are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images, charts, history, information added in. So it's an online training based on my years of working with voice diagnostics, and how the human voice is really a key
Wow.
to understanding who we are
Hmm.
and how to be free in manifesting our full potential.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, for instance, just to ground this a little bit for your listeners, um, corporations, banks, medical facilities are all using voice diagnostics.
Wow.
They were able to, Medicine is able to identify disease before it develops in the voice.
Oh my gosh.
And say banking is using it for security because you can be identified by your voice signature.
Mm-hmm.
Corporations for hiring are using voice diagnostics to discover in like a split few seconds of voice recording what the personality and potential of that person is.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'm moving out of doing sessions because I've been doing it for so long, and 35 years something.
Hmm.
And I'm really wanting to train people to do this because it's so exciting that
Hmm.
when people find out what their voice pattern is, where they need to liberate themselves, to support physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually,
Hmm.
to find that ketone to just go for the trajectory of
It's
total
so cool.
success.
No, it's
Yeah.
so cool. And I've had a calling to this for such a long time that I'm like, Ani, oh my gosh. I'm like, my mind is taking this so many different directions. It's really, really exciting. I'll have to take your training, just point blank, because yeah, what you said about inside the voice, being able to hear, um, what needs to be healed, essentially, is how I heard what you said. To me, is something that I feel like is already like a part of my intuitive ear, but then having more training or more science behind it to understand frequency, and what that
Right.
is really, really
Right.
cool. And it's just so like Aquarian age. It's so groundbreaking to me that you've been doing this work for how long you've been doing it. It's really, really inspiring, because I feel like it's a part of maybe the healing world, that there's so many sound healers now, and I think that's really, really amazing. But I feel like there's a lot of different ways that we can take it, and I don't know that the voice gets as much attention
Right.
as maybe instruments do.
Exactly. And it's the most powerful instrument
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
the planet. It has more potential to transform us if we know how to use it.
Mm. Can you speak to that? Like, what have you seen, maybe in yourself or in clients or students? Like, what does that look like when you say transform?
Okay. So when I hear women speaking, it's not you. You feel like you have a grounded voice to me, and
Thank you.
emotionally grounded. But I meet or hear a lot of women speaking, and they have this high level voice, and it's like from the neck up, and
Hmm.
it's not embodied. It's not fully. grounded in themselves.
Right.
And I find that happens with women who have had any kind of sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
or denying their own sexuality or their own physical incredible beauty temple, their temples that they
Right.
have been given for this life. It's like the ignoring of that. The voice reflects it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And over and over, if I analyze a woman with a voice like that, there is either sexual abuse or denial of their own sexuality.
Mm.
And so this the root, chakra area is connected with the throat chakra energetically, and
Mhm.
even the organs
Right.
look similar.
Between the vocal cords and the yoni is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a similarity when you look at the anatomy. You just look at a simple anatomy book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mirroring. And interestingly, the way I work with the musical scale and the voice, the notes that are associated, C and G, form a
Mm.
form a perfect fifth in music.
Right.
So it's a harmonic. So the throat is a harmonic of the root.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
they've found this even in the Harvard Medical School. This is part of my course that I teach. I discovered this guy, Gil Alterovitz, who years ago was doing research in sound frequencies and gene activity.
Okay,
And
wow.
he was able to identify the sound frequencies of healthy colon cells and cancerous colon cells.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a comparison, and the healthy ones resonated at C and G.
Interesting.
Exactly what I'm playing in the sound application that I use for colon or, first chakra sort of issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When that is just, I'm so happy to hear that there's research, there's measure behind it. And I think that's really amazing for the people who need that kind of substantiation of that information.
Right.
I'm a person who, well, I'm very scientific, and I'm also very, very intuitive. And so like I can kind of be in both. I think for me, it's about trusting, the energy behind something or frequency, but it's good to see, like, to be able to see it and to like, really put some tangibility to things. Because I think in a way for maybe more Western people or listeners, it can sound like, wait, what? Like, like I
Yeah,
think for
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
people it's shocking. But what I was going to ask you about the voice. So when you're talking about a woman's voice and you're able to hear the traumas essentially, of how things are, not allowed to drop in, or there's a blockage there about not dropping in. Is it pitch? Is it timbre? Is it both? Like, how would you?
It's both. You can just hear that the sound is coming from the head, and this kind of thin.
Hmm.
It's not. It doesn't have resonance. It's like when I'm the you
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah, and then like what is your thought about vocal fry? Like when the voice kind of cuts off and gets really like, I guess like guttural is the way that I would describe vocal fry. Like when people are down here. I don't like to like sit there with my voice, but that thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure because it may vary from person to person, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a universal code or a global similarity in what people do with their voices that
Mm-hmm.
relates absolutely to emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it could be the shutting down of the emotions. Like when you hear a sportscaster, they're more maybe guttural and monotone.
Okay. Uh-huh.
They're not revealing their emotional involvement in what they're saying. They're just going blah, 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 blah.
True.
And and so it's not a full expression of who we really are and what we're really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So much of Western culture and modern culture in general, compared to the ancient times, there's a shutting down of one's expression in general. What's politically correct, what's culturally correct, what's gender correct, what's,
Right.
and it all gets stifled. And then there's a whole stylization I've noticed in LA girls speaking, or
Right.
different people, different areas and different age groups, and they get into this stylization where they're copying each other. And
Mm-hmm.
then that you lose the authentic voice.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. I know it's really profound what you're saying, and it's things that I've said to myself and kind of just in conversation for many years. But I think that what you're doing and the study and the work is really, really just it's groundbreaking to me. It's really special. And I think the more that people can understand this and like listen to themselves, because sometimes so that there's the experience of like what I'm hearing coming out of my voice right now, like inside my own head. But then like hearing it back on a recording, sometimes it's not starkly different in my experience now, but it used to be like, whoa, that's me.
Right, right, right.
But being able to like have that reflection and to hear oneself and to kind of just even feel the placement of, oh wow, that's on that day, even me saying my name sounded this way, or because I like to test my own voice saying my name, my own
Right.
signature. And that's like my own, I guess, like fun scientific study. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, and being able to feel inside the self, where things are stuck, or I think for me it's more so just where I'm holding myself back, like where I'm not allowing
Right,
myself
right,
to
right.
open.
We can hear it in our voices and we can feel it in our bodies. There's another aspect to this work that is probably the part of this voice analysis that has blown my mind for decades, and it still does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and this is the part that's based on the Hermetic traditions, the ancient traditions, wherein astrology and astronomy were incorporated into medicine.
Right.
This was done by the Celts, the Druids, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and Western medicine until about the 1700s.
Wow.
Astronomy, astrology were taught by Galileo in the medical academies in Italy. And it was required to become a doctor to understand astrology, because if you had the astrology of a person, you could see the tendencies and the weaknesses of particular organs. So it's called medical astrology, and we're
Mm-hmm.
using it today. So if you can imagine, in a really simplified kind of example, at the moment you were born, the heavens were resonating, and NASA now has identified, the frequencies of
Right.
stars, planets, etc. That's how they learn about the composition of
Mm-hmm.
each planet and how they are operating. So, by studying the song of the sun, they learn about the activity of the sun and weather patterns. So basically, each planet and the star and sun and the moon were resonating at specific frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in specific areas of the heavens when you're born.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So a whole symphony of sound is emanating to each little being that is being born.
Mm-hmm.
We look at that pattern and voila, it's incredible, but it mirrors the voice pattern.
Wow.
So if Saturn was stressed with the sun and Pluto or whatever when that little person was born, then when they get older, we find, if we can measure the voice, we find that a lot of people, I would say 80% of the people that I've worked with, thousands and thousands, are missing their sun sign frequency. So if you can
Whoa.
imagine, if you come in on the vibration of a sun in Capricorn or a sun in Leo or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and the corresponding frequency for Capricorn is A,
Okay.
like law.
Uh-huh.
If that frequency is not present in your voice, then that means it's not present in your energy field and in your body, in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we can measure the frequencies that are operating in people through listening to ear, acoustical diagnostics,
Okay.
voice diagnostics, sight diagnostics. We can
Mm-hmm.
identify the frequencies that are dominant and missing.
Wow.
So that pattern at the moment of birth, that symphony is impressing like a blueprint on
Mm-hmm.
each person. It's extraordinary.
What does it mean, like, if the person's missing? So I have a sun in Aquarius. What would it mean if I was missing a sun in Aquarius vibration? That I'm
Okay.
not embodied in that, or?
Well, so I've met so many people that are actually miraculously successful in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're missing their sun sign. But most of them had to work so hard to get to where they're at.
Right.
And it makes it so much easier when you have the frequency in place because it's like a ketone for success.
Mm.
It puts that missing piece in so
Mm-hmm.
that you can operate to the full potential with health, with ease, almost effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what it would mean for an Aquarius if you were missing that frequency, which relates to an A sharp,
Mm-hmm.
which relates to the nervous system, electrical fields.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if you were missing that, I would say, take lots of breaks from electric, computers, etc., electronics. Be in nature as much as possible to ground and to ground the energy,
Right.
and also take lots of minerals.
Wow.
um, it really helps to calm the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And then one would use the A sharp. I can send you a sample of this, so you can try it, the A sharp tone.
Mm-hmm.
And you would tone the tone and just visualize your whole nervous system just healing and calming and soothed by that A sharp tone. And if you were missing that tone, you would
Mm-hmm.
probably feel like you came home to yourself,
Wow.
and you become more centered, more grounded, more energetic.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, I'm a student of astrology, so you're speaking my language and I understand what I understand deeply. And, I'm just really smiling to myself about it all because it feels very natural. And you're saying that you're not necessarily having to go outside to, get the tone from somewhere else, but that you can mirror the tone in your own voice is what you're saying. So I could tone A sharp for myself through my own
Absolutely.
voice.
And that's the key, that I don't play healer.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
I just give people the information that they maybe forgot.
Exactly. I love
and
that.
and I developed a series in 1994. I mean, this was really way before, there was a whole sound healing craze.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's a series of recordings based on the 12 musical tones. So if you were using the A sharp, you would use that recording and then tone along with it, because the important bit is people actively toning their tone.
Exactly.
And I developed these little tools because most people are not musical and they're not going to go out and try to figure out, well, how do I get my A sharp tone? And most of the people that were trained the way I was in voice diagnostics were trained to use electronic kind of sine wave
Mm-hmm.
frequencies
Mm-hmm.
that I actually couldn't stand the sound of.
Wow.
I felt interference. Because it wasn't harmonically, naturally alive.
Wow.
So in the recordings, of course, people are using their own voice, which is the most live instrument, the most powerful instrument that they have. And it also utilizes the recording utilizes a lot of the ancient instruments. They have a long history of healing, like
Hmm.
harps, 5,000-year-old harps from Babylonia and you know
Hmm.
Egypt, etc. And the Australian didgeridoo, Tibetan bowls, harmonic toning, and mantras. So all of
Okay.
that's on the recording. So then people just tone along with that. So they're getting a whole wash, a sound bath, just with the recording. But
Hmm.
then they join their voice in, which brings it alive.
Oh my gosh, Ani. I I'm like I was 3 years old in 1994, so I'm like, wow. I'm like, that is just it's just blowing my mind that it's been around this long. I mean, I mean, I've had a short life on Earth right now. It's like it's just it's not. I mean, there's that, but I'm just thinking, yeah, in like the modern, last 10 years, like sound healing is just like expanded so much, and it's just so great to hear that there's been people who like yourself who have been researching these things for so long, and you have such a grounded way to speak about things and so many different pieces that you're bringing in that I'm really excited to for the listeners to integrate the information because yeah, I think it's really, really special. I had a question, it's escaping me at the moment, but I think it'll come back, about sound. Um, well, the one thing that I was really curious to ask you today was about your work with the sacred sites and your work with sound, and then the harmonic convergence project that you're
Right,
working on, or
right.
yeah.
So it's so interesting. So in 1987, well, I had already been working with indigenous people for some time, and I had traveled to Central America, Mexico, and different places, and especially working with the tribes in the American Southwest, the
Mm,
Pueblo tribes mainly.
mm-hmm.
And so I had a very close friend who is a Hopi grandmother,
Wow.
grandmother Carolyn Tawayangama. And she was one of the main spokeswomen for the Hopi people and went to the United Nations 4 times, I think it was.
Wow.
And so my friend was part of the organizers of this indigenous gathering in Machu Picchu, Peru, in 1987. And he invited me to come and bring my small harp, bring the music, also help with the elders and bring grandmother Carolyn. So I had to go up to the Hopi Mesas, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and drive her to Phoenix, Arizona. We flew to everywhere, LA to Lima to Machu Picchu.
Wow.
And well, you don't fly to Machu Picchu, but we got there eventually. But anyway, it was 12 indigenous representatives from around the world. We had an Aboriginal man from Australia. We had Mayan. We had Inuit, Alaskan. We had Celt. We had an Egyptian. We had Mayan, Incan, all these different representatives, Tibetan,
Mm-hmm.
all coming together in this beautiful gathering around the single tree on the grounds of Machu Picchu ruins,
Mm,
the ancient Incan city.
mm,
Single tree that we used as a symbolic tree of life. And with a focus of unity, compassion, understanding each other's cultures. And each culture brought their own ceremony, their own tradition to the
mm-hmm.
circle. And this was all filmed back then with these big
Wow.
cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was attempted to be edited, but it really didn't come together very well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're re-looking at the whole project. And I worked on 4 promotional short videos. They're all on my YouTube channel.
Awesome.
And they're featuring the different elders and their wisdom. And the one with Carolyn, I kind of embellished and did a longer one because I was so close to her, an
Wow.
homage to Hopi grandmother. And so it just gives her beautiful, simple wisdom for the world that it feels like it's more important than ever now.
Mm-hmm.
Love your brother and sister. We're all family. We were once united. We forgot, and how to live in a connected way, honoring the earth, growing corn, just all of these really basic principles that indigenous people have always known and worked with. And the world has just gone bonkers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's totally fragmented and polarized, and now with the elections and the
Right.
wars in the Middle East, and it's just people are really kind of falling apart at the seams, I think, because I've noticed so many people getting really kind of acting strangely, being overwhelmed, and the I think it's the global psychic
Mm-hmm.
envelope that people are tuning into, and it's making them nervous. They're having a hard time sleeping.
Right.
So anyway, the need for sound, the need for indigenous wisdom now is more than ever. And
Mm-hmm.
so this whole film project we're working on raising funds to create a bigger documentary
Wow.
featuring each of the 12 elders, and then where we were then with our visions of world unity and peace, and where we are now in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and all of our great visions, did they really manifest? Well, they're in process,
I see. Mm-hmm.
we're in process. It's like I feel like we're in a big cauldron, an alchemical cauldron of transformation, and humanity is growing, but there are all of these birth pains where people are, really kind of having a hard time in a lot of places on the planet right now.
Yeah. And I'm inspired to ask, like, so that time in 1987 with the harmonic convergence, um, you, I mean, I know I've read about it. I know about it, but, you guys knew it was coming, or like there was maybe indigenous wisdom that was predicting that
Okay.
time, or I'm curious yet
Yeah.
to hear about that part.
Yeah. So this gathering was a kind of a lead up to harmonic convergence, which was the 17th of August 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And this was based on Mayan calendars and prophecies and so forth. So it was kind of New Age, but then again, it wasn't. It was based on the Mayan calendars
Yeah.
and how this was launching a new era for
Mm.
humanity. So we planned all these different gatherings at different places. And we started off at Machu Picchu. Then I went to England and Scotland, um, the island of Lewis for the Callanish lunar return.
Mm.
Every 18.6 years, the moon uh, just glides along the old woman of the moors, the profile of the horizon
Wow.
from the standing stones.
Uh-huh.
So we went there for that. It was very magical and very powerful. So we were doing ceremony, music at each place, prayer, etc., for all of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up in the last place in Egypt for, I think, 3 weeks, and going to all the temples and the Great Pyramid, etc.
Wow.
And we had about 22 people chanting in the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber during
What a
that time.
dream. Oh my
And
gosh.
I had my small harp, so I recorded all that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's on the. I can send you a link. That's all on the Song of Isis album. It was
Okay.
recorded live at that time.
Wow. I've listened to that many times. I didn't know that's the whole story on it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and okay, so the travel was leading up to August 17th, is what you're saying, before that
Right. That
happened.
was like the culmination of this
Gotcha.
turning point in the Mayan calendar.
Mm-hmm. And then like what so how, we're in 2024 now. I guess like what does it mean for us in the now? Maybe how are we bridging the energies and the information that came through at that portal point? I guess I don't even know how to speak about it. Like, what would
Yeah.
your languaging be?
Well, I think it's a really good reminder because I think things have gotten really well, we've moved a lot. A
Hmm.
lot of the areas in medicine, in sound research, in consciousness, more people are waking up. But as I was saying, in that wake up process, there's a lot of chaos going on. So
Yeah.
I would say the main important thing that comes to me from these times and the work that was done at that time is to go back to just remembering some of those basic principles,
Hmm.
to make our lives a sacred experience, wake up with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I do a prayer every morning. It's based on the Tibetans. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free.
Mm-hmm.
And then I add, may all beings discover their heart's luminosity.
Wow.
And I do
Mm-hmm.
that every morning. I have a Tibetan bowl. I ring the bell. I light a candle.
Mm.
I pray for world peace. On my altar, I have, bind the bombs and, bring some wisdom and sense into these leaders of all these
Yes.
nations. So I pray every day. And I think that's the reminder that all of these gatherings bring is to come back to some really basic principles, the importance of prayer, the
Mm-hmm.
importance of daily meditation, being in nature, and then having a focus, a positive focus.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the dream work like you're doing,
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
keeping a journal of our dreams. I do that all the time. I write down significant dreams so that I can learn from them
Mm-hmm.
and work
Yes.
with the dreams and even change them, go back into the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an experience the other night, just really briefly, but this incredible. I mean, I'm usually like loving serpents and dragons, but this one was like more of a malevolent force.
Whoa.
And it attacked me from behind.
Huh.
And so I woke up and I went back into the dream and I worked with it to release that energy and clear my field,
Powerful.
whatever was coming in for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
When we're working on the forefront, we're working with a lot of energies. And if I post something on Facebook, I can get all kinds of odd, responses from people that are antagonistic, or
Sure.
and saying what I'm doing is quackery, even though I was quoting a scientist. So we're
Right.
getting a lot of, we have to have a protective field, and we can do that with sound, we can do that with mantras, we can do that with prayer.
Mm. What are your favorite mantras for, holding the one's vibration like this?
Yeah, I usually use a lot of the Tibetan mantras because that's where I'm trained.
Okay.
And I received them in empowerment ceremonies from the Rinpoches. So,
Wow.
those are like, or one was actually from the Tara mantra, was directly from the Dalai Lama when he gave a teaching in
Mm.
Arizona in the
Wow.
1990s for thousands and thousands of people. So when I received them, directly, those are the ones I use. I don't
Wow.
just go looking for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then I recorded a lot of them on an album called Medicine Song One, so people can chant along with those mantras.
Beautiful.
Um, and there are mantras also on the Songaia series for the sound application of the 12 tones.
Mm-hmm.
So there are mantras on those as well. So, I've
Wow.
had experiences where people just didn't even know what it was. They just heard it and they were,
Mm.
listening to it. It exorcised negative energies from people.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. I'm inspired to ask if you are a person that works with intuitive singing or what some people call light language, or if you're, you know, Yeah, curious about your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do that. I don't call it like language, but I just call it my medicine woman voice.
Uh-huh.
And, if I'm in the house and I'm feeling a certain way, this it come out in a song or a different language, or I'll speak it.
Mm-hmm.
Or one time there was this threat to my home, and somebody was like, they were coming down the driveway late at night,
Mm.
and my daughter was asleep in her bedroom, and he was walking toward her window, and I went out and I became this
Mm-hmm.
medicine woman voice with them.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a fierce, it sounded like some ancient wild woman. But the
Mm-hmm.
guy took off running. He said, "Oh my God, I'm not staying around here." So sometimes it comes out as a protective force, but most of the time it just comes as a joyful expression of
Yeah.
life. But yeah, I definitely use that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes intuitively. Or at like a stone, a megalithic site, you
Yes.
know, uh, I'll connect in with the stone, and sometimes the language will come.
Oh my gosh, that is so incredible and magical and really resonates for my own personal experience as well. Um, I didn't know you had a daughter. That's so cool.
I have three grandchildren and two great grandchildren.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful family. I mean, that's a big expansion. And
Yeah,
one daughter, or are there other children?
one daughter only, and
Hmm.
all of that happened.
Beautiful. Wow. And is she there in France with you or in the States
No,
or?
they're all in the US. I have to go back and see them. Yeah.
Wow.
But what's interesting is tonight after our meeting, I'm going to meet with my granddaughter who's 28, who wants to carry on the legacy of my work. So we're going to have a business meeting.
Incredible. Well, I love to hear about families and lineage, and that seems like a really, really powerful
Yeah.
opening and perhaps initiation. Um, the last thing I wanted to ask, and just respecting time, and I'm so grateful, it was about your book and your journey with the book and how it came to be and everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah. With your dream work and your intuitive work, it really ties in because the book began really when I moved to this area about 18, 19 years ago.
okay.
And I live in the foothills of the Pyrenees in
Hmm.
southern France, not too far from the Mediterranean.
Wow.
And I started exploring the sites, and then I had a series of dreams that instructed me that I needed to do certain things in the landscape to for my own journey, but I didn't realize it was about a book.
Hmm.
And so I started working with a lot of the megalithic structures, the standing stones, the dolmens, the Mary Magdalene sites, the ancient temples that the Greeks erected. And I started collecting information, history, experiences. I started writing music at each of the sites. So it became a sound journey. I call it a Camino de Canciones,
Hmm.
a
Mm.
path of songs,
Hmm.
because each site had music.
Mm.
And
Yep.
I write about in the book the not only the history of the sites, but the connectedness of the matrix of the sites, how they form alignments and geometry, and
Wow.
how it's aligned with the stars, how the ancient megalithic cultures aligned their temples to the stars
Hmm.
and to specific solar events like solstices,
Wow.
and the sites that aligned along an ancient Camino that became known as the Camino de Santiago de Compostela,
Hmm.
which was actually the way of the stars that was much more
Mm.
ancient and megalithic. So
Mm.
I write about all of that. It has a lot of maps. And as you mentioned earlier, you got the song map, the video map, and
Hmm.
the album. So all of the songs became an album, a double album, and a lot of the sites we did video, uh, you know,
Hmm.
YouTubes of the different sites. So as a teaching and an experience of each site.
So incredible. So the book is The Guardians of the Dragon Path, and you published in 2020. Is that accurate?
No, 23.
2023.
Not even a year ago, the end of November.
Wow. Okay, wow. So we're coming up on the birthday of the project.
Right?
Yeah, and I was sharing with Ani before that the book for me is so deep, and it's like I can only absorb little bits at a time, and then I really have to just like digest that and be with that energy. But the maps are, I'm a very intuitive mysteries, but very scientific. So I like maps. I like adventure. The sacred sites and just seeing the path of the songs and like hearing. It's really in hearing the music with the map to me that has blown me away and really opened things up. And there's so much wisdom there, and I think that it touches in. At least this is my personal experience, but it touches in on a very multi lifetime journey. Like there's certain things in your songs and in that information that to me seems to be unlocking different pieces from other lifetimes, you know, and like, oh, that's my soul piece, that's my soul code, I'm understanding myself.
So interesting that you say that, because just really briefly, I know we're running out of time, but when I would go to the sites, for instance, the Asclepian Healing Temple where Hygeia was honored, and I would get the song from Hygeia and then play it, I made contact with her.
Yeah.
Things happened in nature that gave me signs that she was hearing, or Artemis and her temple. And then she started coming to me in dreams and teaching me all of these different aspects of what she represented as the prophetess, healer. She actually played the harp as well as Apollo, her twin brother. How to string a bow, all of these things started developing in the dream time after making contact with each of these deities and each of these sites. So all of that energy went into the songs and into the stories in the book.
Wow. And like, probably last question, because I could just keep asking questions, but like there's so many beautiful things. So as far as creative process or intuitive process, like how is it for you when you go to a secret site? How do you get into the space to be able to receive something like this? You know, like, is there a practice? Is there just something that you do? I don't know. How does it work for you?
It's just really simple. You just get quiet.
Okay.
And honor the place. And I mean, that's what I do. I listen. I connect. I connect with the stone. Stone carries memory. And I learned from several different people who have been living in Catalonia for forever and teach, the geobiology and earth energy stuff. And they showed me how you can take a little stone and knock 3 times at the entry to a stone circle or a standing stone, just to say, introduce yourself. And it's like knocking at the door of a friend.
Wow.
Hello, I'm here. I would like to connect.
You knock with your hand, or you take another stone on the stone?
I take another stone and I knock on the stone. It's stone to stone.
Okay.
And it, all of a sudden, every time I do that, I feel an opening connection, a heart opening with the site. Then I'll usually listen and ask for a sound, if there's a sound that connects with the site. And if I have my harp with me, I'll start playing that tone, and then it develops into a little piece. Because everything thrives on music.
It does.
Everything. The invisible realms, the visible realms, trees, stones, children, everything thrives with harmony. So that's one way that I can connect. I listen, then I get the sound.
Wow. Ani, it has been beyond a pleasure. I'm just so grateful, and I can't wait to listen back to this episode, because there's so many things that you said that it blows me away, and I feel like I've overused that phrase. I think what I really mean to say is that it it re-engages the ancient and original self, like just really bringing that in, and not forgetting, not forgetting our brilliance, and like the true soul energy that we have, and all of that exists in that space, and what's really possible. Because there's a lot of things that you shared today that I think a former Vanessa would have thought, wow, that seems impossible. How is she doing it? And I'm just such a lover of your work, and a student of the mysteries, so this has been a pleasure.
Well, I love the way you put things. You grasp things, and you're able to put it in and communicate it in a beautiful way, like the ancient and original being that we are.
Thank you.
And just the remembering that says it all.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's what I'm passionate about. And I also daily say the prayer that you said, which is, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free. And I think that this type of work is really special to me and near and dear to my heart, because I see it as a path to liberation for people. So, to do their own work and not needing to externalize. So thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
We'll link all of the things that we talked about today in the show notes, and to Ani's website, so you can get in contact with the book and her training and all of those things. So yeah, everyone who's listening, have a really amazing day or night wherever you are, and whenever you're listening. And Ani, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.